Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar live from the Larkin homestead. Today, we're going to be talking about basic design and branding principles, as well as some tools that you can use to create your own designs in-house. Please excuse any kind of background noise that you might be hearing. Like I said, I'm doing this from my home today, and there's a little bit of construction going on across the street. So hopefully that doesn't get us too off track here, and I don't expect it to be too much in the way, but if it does get in the way, I do apologize. I'm going to start with a little bit of housekeeping. Your phones are going to be muted throughout the webinar, but if you have a question, you can type it into the question box. We're going to have a short Q&A at the end of the presentation. If you don't already know, my name is Larkin, and I'm the Marketing and Communication Specialist at Cornerstone. My information is right there on the screen, so if you'd like to get in contact with me, I can help you flesh out ideas for refreshing your brand. Also, don't forget to give us a follow on social media. We post industry and Cornerstone updates and information. Go to Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or YouTube to give us a follow. Earn cash with Cornerstone's 2021 Agent Incentive Program. The program rewards you for your new group and individual sales. The top 20 qualifiers will receive cash prizes up to $5,000, plus one lucky qualifier will win a weekend getaway. You can register online at crnstone.com. Autopilot is a compensation-based client referral program that offers the services of licensed representatives to quote, enroll, support, and provide year-round service to clients that may fall out of your business scope but never off of your radar. Under this program, you can focus on growing your business with the assurance that your clients will continue to receive the benefits of your market expertise and continued superior service and support. Our talented team will take care of your clients' health insurance needs for individual and family coverage, employee benefits, or Medicare solutions. So activate Autopilot today, and you can learn more on the Cornerstone website. All right, let's go ahead and get started with talking about design and putting together your marketing collateral. If you're looking to level up your branding and design chops, you've come to the right webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about basic design principles, tips and tricks to help you create cohesive and attractive branding, how to put together a basic flyer on your own, and a free software option that you can use to make your marketing stand out. When it comes to good design, very few brands stand out amongst the others. So we've got Apple, we've got Subway, Google, Coca-Cola, and so on. And as soon as I say these names, you see those logos in your mind. You see the product in your mind. These brands have so effectively built their brand around their visuals that they often only need their logo on their marketing to communicate their vision and their mission. Good branding and design can help you leave a lasting positive impression on your clients and prospects, but it's not as easy as slapping a logo on a Word document. An attractive branding piece with the right verbiage and a simple call to action can attract the attention of a prospective client and encourage them to engage further with your services. But how do you know what colors, fonts, or even just the verbiage to use, and how much is too much or too little? There are a number of basic design principles to keep in mind when you're putting together your marketing, whether it's flyers, videos, logos, or postcards. And if you had joined me for my Beginner's Guide to Branding webinar a couple of months ago, and that recording can be found on the Cornerstone Resource Center, you know all about the 4 V's framework of branding, which is your vision, your values, your voice, and your visuals. While this webinar is going to focus a little bit more heavily on the visuals aspect of the framework, the entire framework is important for establishing a cohesive brand and design. As the marketing specialist at Cornerstone, I'm in charge of putting together all of the marketing collateral, so the email blasts, the flyers, the websites, the logos, the postcards, etc., that you see coming from Cornerstone on a day-to-day basis. And today, I want to walk you through exactly what software I use to put that content together and some tips and tricks that I keep in mind when I'm creating those pieces. So let's create a very simple flyer that's going to advertise a health insurance agency's individual health insurance services. So my first recommendation for creating the flyer is to start the copy on a Word document. This is going to help you construct your verbiage and keep it brief. And it's also going to allow you to spell check before you even add the copy to the document. And this is going to give you a better idea of the room that you're going to have for additional graphics on the flyer so that you can maintain that design balance. So as you can see, I put together basic verbiage for my flyer, and I did so by creating a headline, the actual content for the piece, a call to action, and the relevant contact information that they will need to get in contact with this agency. So first, you're going to want to consider the purpose of the flyer. What specific services do you want to advertise? Are you looking to target a specific prospect base? Consider these questions before you begin actually constructing your verbiage. So the intention of the headline that I've written here is to grab the attention of your prospect or clients. So I'm going to appeal to clients who may have financial restrictions that make it difficult to find affordable health care. So I wrote here, I'll highlight it right here, tight budget, I can help. It's a very simple, attention-grabbing headline that appeals to a specific prospect base. I then moved on to the content of the piece, which I kept very general. Keeping in mind the intention of the headline, I created the verbiage that's going to speak more to what my agency could do to help those clients sort through their options. And it also says why they would choose my agency over another. So the whole piece so far speaks to a very specific kind of client, and it provides a solution to a problem. This client has a tight budget and they might be frustrated with the process of finding health insurance. So in comes Larkin Insurance Agency, the fake agency that I've created for this webinar, and we can do it for them all at no cost. The problem is stated and a solution is provided. The call to action is then below that, and that's going to encourage the prospect to call me to learn more about what I can offer. I then include my direct contact information at the bottom so that they know that they can easily get in touch. You want to communicate the most important information in few words within the header, and then the body of the flyer is going to supplement the header. The idea is to always keep the piece as short, sweet, and to the point as possible. This flyer is going to be very simple, it's very actionable, and it's designed to grab the attention of a prospect. So now that we have all of our verbiage ready to go, let's put together the flyer using a site that I often use called Canva. Let me go ahead and pull this up here. All right. For flyers and postcards and such, I typically use a piece of software called Adobe InDesign, but I also use this site, canva.com, very frequently because InDesign can be a bit too complicated for those dipping their toes into graphic design. So people who aren't maybe familiar with how to do this kind of stuff, InDesign might be a little bit too far into that sphere. Whereas Canva is a free graphic design site that's going to help you create graphics, posters, logos, and any other kind of visual content with just the click of a button. And there's a bunch of pre-arranged templates on the platform that are extremely easy to use, and they're also very modern, so they help you stay ahead with the design trends that are currently ahead of the game at the time. And creating an account is super easy and it's very user-friendly. I'm not going to actually show you my Canva because I use this as well for personal projects, but all you do is go to canva.com and create your free account. There's going to be premier options available for a pretty decent price, but usually I find that the free version does the job. So you just create your free account on there. It's just a couple of different questions, and then you can get designing. So all I did was log into my account and click flyer, and here we are, we have a flyer. So now that we have our flyer ready to go, we're going to go ahead and copy and paste the content that we created in our Word document. And we're also going to give the piece a title so that we know what the piece is if we have to go back and look for it. So because we're focusing on tight budget, we're going to go ahead and name the piece Tight Budget? Question mark. So then later I can go back and find it if I need to. We're also going to start copying and pasting that content from the Word document. So first we're going to have our headline, which is tight budget, I can help. We're going to add in our content, and all I'm doing is just going back to the Word document here and highlighting the text and clicking Control-C and then going back to Canva and clicking Control V. I think you can also do highlight, copy, just like that. And then you can paste it. Oh, for Canva, you do have to use Control V. So that's good to know. So it's Control C to copy and Control V to paste. Now that we have everything copied and pasted onto the document, we can kind of see how the flow of the piece is working from the top to the bottom. And we can see that clients are probably going to read the headline at the top first, then the call to action second, and then the body of the piece, and then finally the contact information. And we can also see that the document has plenty of text, so we don't have to worry about adding additional information to take up a little bit more space. So let's get to designing the document. Your first consideration is your fonts. Are you going to use a serif, sans serif, or script font? Is the font that you're using clear and legible? What's your goal for the font? What do you want your font to communicate? Is your brand going to be very serious? Is it friendly? Is it funny? A simple, very easy to read serif or sans serif font is usually the way to go, and I would usually stay away from the script fonts or the fonts that are overly graphic. If you don't know the difference between a serif and a sans serif font, that's okay. A serif font, like this font that you see here, does not have those small lines at the end of characters. And this is like an Arial or Calibri if you're familiar with the fonts on Microsoft Word. A serif font, on the other hand, let's go ahead and find one here, would be like a Times New Roman, where it has these little asterisks at the end of each character, these little lines. So that would be a serif font, and then the sans serif font does not have those characters. So you want your header and your call to action fonts to stand out, and you want your body fonts to be a bit more neutral and easy to read. This means increasing the font size of your header, like I've done here, and your call to action, like I'll do right here. And you can see how easy this program is to use as well. I'm just kind of manipulating it by using the arrows, and it's very simple to use. And you might want to make it stand out, their headline and the call to action. So we got our headline up here, tight budget, I can help, and then we have our call to action down here, call today to find out how much you could save. You want these to be a bit bolder than the other text because you want these to stand out a bit more than the body of the piece. So let's choose some actual fonts for our flyer. For the header text, let's look at using a more bold font like Open Sans Extra Bold, and that might be gibberish to you, and that's okay. They also provide, if you go onto Canva, they provide all kinds of fonts, as you can see here on the screen. There's really no limit to these fonts. Some of them are Premier, or you might have to pay for them, but there's a lot of really great free ones that you can use as well. So let's go ahead and use Archivo Black actually instead of the Open Sans, because that one looks pretty good too. And I just try to make small adjustments to the flyer as I go, just as I kind of see things that might not be working or things that might work well. I just kind of adjust as I go. I'm also going to make the call to action the same font, Archivo Black, but I'm going to make that text a little bit smaller because I want the headline to stand out first. Okay, so these fonts are very clear and they do stand out. And like I said, Canva has a huge library of fonts that you can choose from. And I'm going to then consider my body font. And I'm going to go ahead and change that to Lato, which is, oh, I got it right here because I use it all the time. There we go. Lato is a very light and easy to read font that's going to look really good with blocks of text like we have here. And we're also going to change the contact information. The initial font size, as you've noticed here on this body font, is 24. And if you've seen a Word document, you know that the initial font size for a Word document is either 11 or 12. So this font is actually quite big. And as you can see down here, the zoom is actually at 58%. so that it fits on this screen. So if we go to the full size, this font is actually quite large. So we're going to go ahead and change that down to a nice 14. And it might look small here, but that's only because the zoom is off so much. We're also going to change the contact information to a nice 14 as well. And then maybe we'll make the the call to action just a bit larger at 16. Like I said, it looks really small right now, but as soon as you put it onto your full screen and as soon as it's printed, it's super easy to read. So now that my fonts are in place, so remember I have Archivo Black up here, I have Lato down here, and those fonts work pretty well together. They look nice and clean. I can clearly read everything, and it all looks very well put together at this point. You can get a better idea at this point of how the eye is going to react upon scanning the flyer. So when I just glance at this flyer, my attention immediately goes to the headline. And then it's probably going to go down to the call to action because it's a little bit bolder as well. And then it's probably going to go to the body and then to the contact information. And this is how you want it to flow. And this is also why you want the content in your body paragraph to only supplement the headline and the call to action rather than overtake it. So you don't want too much in that body. So often I see flyers with paragraphs and paragraphs of text, which can be very overwhelming to your prospects. So instead, consider communicating with text that is short, sweet, and to the point, like I've mentioned before. Now that we've changed up our fonts, you're ready to add some imagery, including stock photos, icons, your logo. And you can try to find some stock images on Canva, but they may be under lock and key for Premier or Pro members only. So let's go ahead and try to find an image on Canva, which, like I said, that's the website that I'm using right now, using the keyword family. So I'm going to go over here to the left where it says photos. And then there's also elements, which you can see here. It's like icons and shapes and charts, ingredients, and things like that. But we're going to go ahead and use a photo, and I'm going to go ahead and type in family. And I like this picture right here, so I'm going to go ahead and click it, and then it automatically populates onto the flyer. And if you're not finding something that you like on Canva, if you're kind of scrolling through and the ones that you like are either under lock and key or you're just not finding what you're looking for, there are plenty of other resources out there other than Canva to find free stock photos. And these stock photo-based databases that I'm going to be talking about do not require you to license or credit an image. So we're going to take a look at pexels.com, which is a free stock photo website that I usually use as my go-to, and that's pexels.com, PEXELS.com, and all you do is type in a keyword for an image that you want to be looking for. So you can see I've got a bunch of images about family here as well. So all you do is click on the image that you're interested in, and there's a free download button at the top right-hand corner. So it's going to be that simple. And typically what I do with these free photos is I keep a library of them on my computer so that when I'm putting together pieces like this, I can easily access them. And every once in a while, if I'm looking for a lot of new photos to brighten up my pieces, I'll go through and I'll download a ton and put them into a folder so that I have something that's a little bit more refreshing to look at. And this isn't the only site that you can use for free photos. We've also got Pixabay, PIXABAY.com, which is the same thing. You just search by putting in your keyword. We've also got Unsplash, UNSPLASH.com. Same thing, type in your keyword. And then we have Reshot, RESHOT.com. Just like the others, just type in your keyword and then you download. So now going back to Canva, I can go ahead and adjust this photo as I need to for the piece by cropping it. I can adjust the light filters. I can flip it. I can move it around on the page. There's a lot of really nice customizable options for these images. And now, if you hadn't done so already, you would have applied your company logo. I typically like to put the logo at the top left-hand corner of the piece or the bottom left-hand corner of the piece. And you can just do that by uploading right here on the left-hand side of the screen. So I can see that this image is a little bit too big, so I'm going to go ahead and crop it just a little bit just by clicking crop and clicking done. So now it fits on the piece a little bit better. And as I'm doing all this, I'm just going to go ahead and move things around so that everything looks a little bit more balanced in the design as I added that image. And Canva is really awesome because it does provide these guides so you can ensure that your content is always well aligned. And I really want this headline to stand out, so I'm going to include a color block behind it with a color from a color palette, which brings us to our next point. First, I'm going to go ahead and grab that color block. So the way that I would do that is going to Elements, and then I would go to Shapes, and I would just pick the square right there. And I just kind of shape it to go behind the headline. And that's just going to help the text stand out a bit. Okay. So the next consideration is your color scheme. Do all the colors in your color palette work well together? Are they pleasing to the eye? Your colors can affect the way that your clients and prospects feel about your brand, and each color has a different meaning. So red, for example, evokes several different responses ranging from anger and violence to love or importance. And because of this, red can be a very powerful accent color that can be seen as too overwhelming if it's used in excess. So let me show you here. If I were to change this color to this bright red here, that can seem a little bit overwhelming. So red is one that you're going to want to be kind of careful with, or you're going to want to dull it down with some black tones or white tones to make it a little bit deeper or lighter. On the other hand, a cooler color like a green can be seen as more rejuvenating or balancing. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to green. You can see it's a little bit more pleasing to the eye. When you've decided which colors to use for your own brand, you're going to want to do a little bit of light research to find out what those colors mean in terms of marketing. And that little bit of research can mean the difference between creating a brand that sticks and a brand that turns away prospects. And once you have your color palette in place, you want to stick to it so that all of your marketing across the board is consistent and it's reliable. We've spoken about consistency in branding in the past, and it's the most important to keep that in mind with your marketing collateral. Let's take a look at the Cornerstone color palette, for example. Let me go to the Cornerstone website, crnstone.com. As you may have noticed, the way that we've used our color palette throughout the years has definitely evolved, ranging from using a brown to a gray to using our classic Cornerstone yellow and orange as the dominant color. And just recently, with an update to the Cornerstone website, we've introduced a light green and a teal to the mix to add a nice accent color. Your color palette and your brand can be ever-changing, and you want to be sure to keep it fresh. On the site, you can see how all of our colors are working well together and they're blending together. And you can also see the header and the body fonts that we've chosen and how those help our marketing on the website. If you don't have a color palette yet, now is the time to get one. And if you don't know where to start, there's a number of resources online to help you find a palette with colors that work well together, which is a difficult thing to figure out. I myself need to use plenty of online resources to help me sort through all of the different colors to see what works well together and what doesn't. I don't necessarily have an eye for that kind of creativity, but there are plenty of resources online to help me out. Same with fonts. If you don't know what fonts go well together, you can always look it up online. I'm constantly using Google to see what other designers suggest for font pairings, color pairings, etc. My favorite website for helping me generate a new color palette is colors.co, and that's going to be COOLORS.co. COOLORS.co. So this site generates a palette of colors that work well together without you having to do too much of the legwork. So like I said, you just go to this website and then you click generate at the top of the screen. And then all you have to do once this loads, give just a second. All you do once you get here is just continually hit the space bar until you find a color palette that works well for you. So I really like this color palette. I think it's nice and bright, but what I really like about this palette is this blue right here. So I want to see what other colors I can generate with this blue color. So I'm going to click lock here, and then I'm going to continually hit that space bar, and it's going to keep that color in the color palette for me so that I don't have to memorize this number and so that I don't lose it. So we're just going to keep going and find a color palette that we like. And I really actually kind of like this one. So what I'm going to do at this point, now that I found a color palette that really works well for me, I need to write down these numbers. So you can see the pound sign and then the color number, 53B3CB. And that might seem like a lot of gibberish, but you do definitely need those numbers. So if you go to colors.co and you find a color palette that you like, immediately write those numbers down as well as the name of the color. That's going to help you stay consistent with your branding later on. So now that we've gotten our colors, we're writing them down. We're going to have to use those colors so that we can copy and paste them into our piece. So I'm going to go ahead and take this color here. I really, really like this blue. And I'm going to go back to my flyer and I'm going to show you why these color numbers are important. So if you go to this color block here, which is the part that we're looking to change, and I go to hit the color up here, there's a section that says new color. So I go ahead and click that, and it requires that number. So if I copy and paste that number in there, I can be assured that I'm getting the same exact color every single time. Some sites, on the other hand, are going to ask you for your RGB colors. And if you don't have those numbers, all you do is go to Google and type in color and then put in your number. And it's going to show you right here exactly what color numbers those are. So RGB color is one of those things that Microsoft Word asks for you to use. So I'm going to go ahead and move this over here so I can read it. And I'm going to go to Microsoft Word where we have our original content, and I'm going to highlight the text and I'm going to change it to that blue color. So I would just go to the colors right here and click more colors, custom, and you can see it requires the RGB, which means red, green, blue. And these are the numbers that were provided from Google as the RGB code for that blue. And now that headline piece is blue. So like I said, we're going to go ahead and use that color palette on our flyer. And if this is something that might be a little bit more confusing to you and you might want a little bit more information about it, let me know in the survey after this webinar, and maybe that's something I can go more in depth with in a future webinar. So that survey is really important. If there's something that you see in this webinar that you could use a little bit more clarification, please use that survey. I definitely read those, and I'm really interested to see what you would like to learn more about. Okay, so going back to our flyer, we want to keep in mind what colors would be better where. A more neutral color like a gray or a black, for example, is going to be best used in the body of a flyer. You also want to be careful to avoid hard to read colors like a light yellow. Like putting this headline into a light yellow with no color block behind it is going to be very difficult to read. That's not what you want, and it's not going to stick out to people. So you want to be very careful with those colors. So we're going to use that blue for our color block to make the headline stand out. You can also just color the font itself, but I find that adding a color block behind the headline adds a bit more depth. Using a site like Canva really just requires a lot of practice. It's pretty intuitive and user-friendly, and the more that you tinker with it, the better that you can understand its capabilities and what you can do with it. Now is a good time to consider balance in our design. So we've done our text, we've gone ahead and laid it out and messed with our fonts a little bit, we've added our imagery. Then we've created our color palette and added our color palette to it. And now we're just going to look at the balance of the design in Canva. And that's going to refer to how your design is actually laid out on the piece. So is there a part of the flyer that looks out of balance or out of focus when it should be more highlighted? Is one part of the flyer heavier than the others? I'm looking at the piece and I think that the top might be a little bit heavier than the bottom because of all of the images and graphics that are going on at the top. But this actually works because we want the eye to slowly move down the page as the prospect gathers a little bit more information. So kind of like that inverted triangle that you might hear about. So with some final adjustments to the piece, like just kind of moving around to make all of this text line up on one line, just kind of using your eye to figure out, okay, what kind of looks better where? Is everything aligned where it's supposed to be? I'm going to move this down a little bit more. I'm actually going to make my call to action stand out just a little bit more. And I'm going to line that up in the middle. And then you know what? I'm not really feeling this black here. So I'm actually going to see if a white will work. Yeah, I like the white there. So that works as well. So with some final adjustments to the piece, checking that the photo is crisp, adjusting our fonts to make sure that they're clear, we have actually completed the piece and it was really, really simple. I'm going to do a final spell check and then I can download it by clicking this download arrow right here. And it has a PDF option for you and you just click download. And then it prepares your design and then you can use it however you need to use it. If this was a little bit too complicated for now, while you get to know the process of creating and designing marketing pieces, remember that Canva offers pre-made templates that you can use. They do the work for you so that you can just plug in your information. So if I go to templates over here on the left-hand side of the screen, I can scroll through and see what templates Canva recommends for me. So I like this one right here. I can always just click on this template and use that instead and just go ahead and plug in my content instead of using theirs. And then you can make small adjustments with the colors. You can change out this image, things like that. However, learning to customize these pieces on your own, like we did up here, is going to help you create a more cohesive brand. So I strongly recommend that you try your hand at this process and build your skill from the ground up. If you're unsure of what you want your branding and design to look like, a good idea is to find a brand that you like and emulate their style. Just poke around on the internet and get a feel for what other brands are doing these days to make their marketing stand out. It's a process of continually updating, rethinking, and reevaluating your existing brand so that you can stay ahead of that curve. And don't forget to ask for feedback either from a trusted colleague, a friend, or even from your clients who see your marketing and branding all the time. What do they like? What don't they like? You can gain a lot of valuable insight just from asking for feedback. I'm going to be releasing a recording of this webinar in the next couple of days, and I highly encourage you to create your Canva account and then revisit this webinar, walking through the steps with me so that you can learn hands-on how to create these pieces for yourself. And that, in a nutshell, is designing marketing collateral for your brand. Of course, there's plenty more to discuss. So like I said, if you found this webinar valuable and you would like to learn more, please let me know in the survey following. I'll be happy to go into more detail with how I manage marketing collateral, some fun design tricks that I use to keep my designs fresh, and so on in a future webinar. And for those of you who might already kind of have a baseline like this, maybe I can do an InDesign webinar. So just let me know in that survey. That survey is super important. All right, we have just a couple of minutes for a brief Q&A. So if you have any questions, you can type them into the question box. And I'm going to go ahead and put the names of these websites in the chat box so that you know what they are. So give me just a couple minutes and I'll get those in the chat box for you. those are just a couple of the websites that I typically use for stuff like this that I've mentioned in today's webinar. So if you want, you can go ahead and copy and paste those, or if you can't grab them from here, feel free to email me and I will send them to you directly. All right, I'll just give a couple more minutes here just in case anybody has any questions. Okay, it looks like we don't have any questions today, but if you do find that you have questions, maybe while you're reviewing the webinar and doing this on your own, please feel free to contact me at jlarkin@crnstone.com. And don't forget to register for our other upcoming webinars in this series and in others. Coming up next, we have a Tech Tuesday webinar on April 7th about Google. And then we have an individual corner webinar on April 8th that's going to cover increasing revenue with your ancillary sales. And the next Build Your Brand webinar is going to be all about email marketing, and we're going to be bringing back our friend Henk Hoffmeyer from iContact. They can give you all the information that you need about sending email marketing to your clients. That webinar is going to be on April 14th. You can register for those webinars and all future webinars on the Cornerstone website at www.crnstone.com/events. Thank you all for joining today. You will receive a copy of the presentation, like I said, in the next day or two, and it will be available online on the Cornerstone Resource Center at crnstone.com. Like I mentioned, I encourage you to replay this webinar recording when you receive it and follow along while you make your own marketing pieces. Software like this is best learned by doing. If you have a couple minutes after the webinar, please take a moment to fill out that survey that we've prepared. And your feedback is extremely important to us, and it ensures that we're continually providing value. Everyone have a great day and stay safe out there.